black woman, so she was kind of a big part of both of those causes, which were big at the time. With other feminists, she organized a landmark convention at Seneca Falls, New York, to discuss the plight of U.S. women. She co-founded the National American Women's Suffrage Association in 1890, dying in 1906. The Declaration of Sentiments was modeled after the Declaration of Independence. It declared that all men and women are created equal, demanding suffrage for women, much like the earlier temperance movement, which, by the way, don't let anyone tell you or any otherwise. If you had to kind of look at the three big movements, temperance was the biggest movement, followed by women's rights, and last abolitionism, because that was the least popular, least talked about movement at the time, because things really didn't change until they changed like that. Like snap of a finger, everything happened. William Lloyd Garrison was a president at this time he was the president who died. And John Tyler took over there. We already talked about him. Let's talk about the American Anti-Slavery Society, founded by William Lloyd Garrison in 1833. It opposed slave traders and owners. Garrison's radicalism soon alienated many moderates within the movement when he claimed the Constitution was a pro-slavery document. Garrison's insistence on the participation of women in the movement led to division among his supporters and the formation of the Liberty Party, which accepted women, and the American Foreign Anti-Slavery Society, which did not. So the Liberty Party was, along with his radicalism and his attacks on churches, William Lloyd Garrison's insistence on the participation of women in the American anti-slavery movement led to a division among its supporters. So the Liberty Party, again, was this splinter faction, pro-women splinter faction, and more radical splinter faction. The Foreign Anti-Slavery Factory was the division that didn't. Harriet Tubman escaped from slavery and helped others do the same with the Underground Railroad. Tubman helped John Brown recruit his band for the raid on Harper's Ferry. After the Civil War, she advocated for women's suffrage as well, alongside Sojourner Truth, an African-American abolitionist and suffragist similar to Susan B. Anthony, born in slavery in New York and speaking Dutch as her first language. She is notable as the first black woman to ever win a court case against a white man. She gave herself her own name in 1843, best known for her Ain't I a Woman speech, advocating for abolitionism and women's rights. Frederick Douglass was a former slave, publishing the North Star, an anti-slavery journal that chronicled the ugliness of slavery and argued the Constitution could be used as a weapon against slavery. Thus, Douglass argued for fighting slavery through legal means, in contrast to some other radical abolitionists who advocated for varying degrees of violence to achieve abolition. He also supported women's suffrage as well. An Underground Railroad was the network of abolitionists and abolitionist sympathizers to help slaves escape into free states in Canada. Members included Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, and the Underground Railroad gained greater support after the Compromise of 1850. At its peak, approximately 1,000 slaves per year escaped. So it was a pretty effective operation, but it was definitely very complicated and complex in its layout. Nat Turner was an enslaved African-American from Virginia, organizing a massive slave uprising in 1831. It resulted in the deaths of over 50 white men, women, and children, and retaliatory killings of hundreds of slaves. Afterwards, states across the South passed laws restricting civil rights for all African-Americans, free or enslaved, and banned them from educating as well. This also at the time led to the founding of a brand new religion, Mormonism, also known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith was the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka the Mormon Church. According to Mormon tradition, the angel visited the young Joseph Smith in western New York in 1823 to reveal the location of a sacred text that was inscribed on gold plates and been buried by the fabled lost tribe of Israel. By 1830, Smith had allegedly translated the sacred text, but he was murdered by a mob in Illinois in 1844. The followers of Mormonism were heavily ostracized and harassed in large part by their practice of polygamy, which is the idea of having multiple wives. But their surrounding community left from New York pretty much and headed west, settling in Utah. Brigham Young, founder he was the leader of the Mormon Church following the 1844 murder of Joseph Smith. He became the new leader, holding a position for 29 years until his own death in 1877 followed a ruptured appendix. He let his followers rest, finally settling in present-day Utah, and luckily he did ban the practice of polygamy. The Transcendentalists were names for artists and writers of the Romantic era, specifically ones who emphasized the motion and the connection between man and nature. They were a reaction to both the rationality of the Enlightenment and the burgeoning Industrial Revolution. Examples include Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, claiming that each person was able to communicate with God and nature directly, eliminating the need for organized churches. They promoted individualism, self-reliance, and freedom from social constraints. These were both poets and authors who wrote books about nature. Henry David Thoreau also wrote a pretty big and important book on civil disobedience, which he advocated for passive resistance as a form of justifiable protest. This essay would later inspire social movements from leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was also an abolitionist that opposed the Mexican-American War. All right, let's tackle some key American culture points here as we finish up our show. Wow, we've done a lot today. Hudson River School was a form of large-scale landscape paintings from the Romantic era that were pretty popular. The Knickerbockers were a club that kind of made a lot of stories about the legend of Sleepy Hollow, Rip Van Winkle, that kind of stuff. Robert Fulton was the inventor of a steamboat, which he created in 1807, a huge part of American culture, which allowed boats to actually travel up and down river, making manufacturing a lot more efficient. And a big place where that was done was the Erie Canal, which was completed in 1825 with funds provided by the state of New York. It linked the Great Lakes with the Hudson River. As a result, the cost of shipping dramatically dropped, and port cities across the length of the canal and its terminal points began to develop and flourish. Nativists were anti-immigrant activists in the 19th century. In this period, many native-born Americans were Protestant of English ancestry. They disliked the large numbers of Irish and Germans that began to arrive in 1840, especially due to their Roman Catholic faith, beginning a large and long American history of people being paranoid about immigrants. This was definitely the bigger, more controversial. It was a pretty big, more controversial movement. Didn't get too much press, though. The American Party was formed, also known as the Know Nothing Party. In 1849, a wing of the Nativist movement became a political party called the American Party. The group opposed both immigration and the election of Roman Catholics to political office. The members of the party met in secret and would not tell anyone what they stood for, saying, "I know nothing." It's a great way to establish a political party right there, let me tell you. Eli Whitney, he famously invented the cotton gin in 1973, which sped up the process of removing the seeds from raw cotton, making cotton the number one cash crop of the South. Plantation owners switched from growing tobacco to growing cotton to keep up with increasing demands from domestic and overseas markets. He popularized but did not invent the concept of interchangeable machine parts. King Cotton was the lucrative, pretty much the name for the cotton business. So, yeah, that's all you need to know today. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been Global. Best luck on your test. Global America. I'm talking about period 4 from 1800 to 1848.